Hi, this is Eli Ogletree of the SnoKing Beekeepers Association. It's our monthly meeting on the third Wednesday of each month. Today is June 21st, 2023. We're going to talk about the queen raising project we have, the fair coming up, classes, a honey extraction event that's going to happen, and let me get the slideshow going because that's always a good idea. Ta-ta! Does everyone see? I hope sees the SnoKing Beekeepers Association face page. Good. So I usually talk a bunch and run through announcements, but interrupt me. Okay, feel free to interrupt me. This is not as structured as like if you've taken one of my classes and you can't stop me from talking. And I go through the presentation and then we all discuss. So classes listed in the newsletter. You can find them on the website. I just sent out, very happy to say, another, I think 11 apprentice and 1 beginner certificate. You get the patch with apprentice, you get a patch with journeyman too, and with master if you get to there. If just as a quick overview, we run beginner about half a dozen times a year. Most of you know that. The next one starts July 10th on Mondays, is going to be taught by James Fuchs, and his bio, he's a diverse experienced beekeeper because he does Lynn's hives as well as the Langstroth, and he's played with a number of different ideas like that. So, and he took a break when he went to college, I think, but I think he's about 8 years experience. It's in the bio. There will be another beginner class that will start after Labor Day. It's like the second Thursday after Labor Day. It's on the website. Journeyman is going to start on Mondays, 9/11. We will do Journeyman twice this year, once in the fall and once in what I consider the sweet spot for beekeepers, January, February, just barely starting March. And that is to me the sweet spot because what else are you doing when it's pouring rain? You finish the holidays, you might as well take a class. This member group, this member club of WASBA is going to just bite the bullet and take on starting a journeyman discussion group. Like once a month or on Facebook, we'll have an organizational meeting sometime after Labor Day. Need to get our fair done first, get everybody back on academic schedule, and then I really think the advanced people who are working on their journeymen or more advanced, would sometimes really like to just spend some time and have a conversation that's a little above the basic beginner level. And I will scold anyone that I catch being rude to a basic question, particularly at meetings, monthly meetings, and on the Facebook discussion group. But it would be really nice to have a discussion group where we could just know that everybody can name the parts of a lab, everybody knows basic biology of a bee, and we could sit down and discuss something. We could say, is this bee vaccine ever going to work? What's the future on Varroa? Not just basic, what is Varroa mites, but you already know that. That kind of advanced discussion group. In a lab, sometimes that, and I have a lab background. In labs, quite often you call it a journal club, and that's what you do, is you pick a topic each time, and you just take a research paper or something, and you talk about it. Maybe that's what people want to do. Maybe they don't. Maybe they would rather talk about why they're doing journeyman or going on to master. Maybe they're starting bee-related businesses and would like to talk about that. So I want to start that, and send me your ideas. Let me know even here today, tonight, if you have an idea about that. What's needed? Something is needed, and no one's stepping forward to do it. So I thought we'd give it a try. We've already had about 40 people take our journeyman classes, and just the class, the academic part. And then I figure with 2 more classes in this academic coming year, 23-24, that will probably pick up another 20, 30 or more people who are interested and maybe could use networking support, would like to join a group. apprentice class I have not committed to because I need a wonderful journeyman candidate or journeyman to teach beginner. I am looking for a recruit. Once I find somebody to teach the beginner class that starts after Labor Day, I will announce when I'm teaching apprentice. If not, I'll teach beginner. And I do enjoy beginner. But if someone teaches beginner, it leaves me free to teach apprentice journeyman and start this journeyman discussion group. We're not just doing the queen rearing workshop. We're going to have some workshops coming up on Varroa and on pollen trapping. On Varroa, sometimes it's just really nice for everybody to see hands-on what we mean when we're talking about the wafers in Apalife VAR packets, or those slimy strips in the hop guard, or the ApiGuard gel tray, and how you might need a spacer to get it to fit above your brood frame so that the bees will access it and it'll actually work. Sometimes just seeing that hands-on helps break down the barrier of actually selecting a treatment and doing it. And pollen trapping. I've got a couple different types of pollen traps that we could look at. Oops, sorry there, back one. Oh, and before I forget, in the newsletter, for those of you who actually read the newsletter or come to this meeting, there is going to be a honey extraction and tasting, honey tasting at the Diesels, a wonderful couple that have volunteered to do that. And they'll probably have room for, they said maybe 18 people. And the phone number to text is in the newsletter. And I think it was text, not email. Text them and let them know how many people are coming. And also bring samples. Let's all taste each other's honey, any kind of honey. Some people travel and bring back honey from other countries, and that's kind of neat. Anybody got Manuka? So let them know. It's a residential area, so parking's a little tricky, but they figure they can handle about 18. But we have, I don't know, 150 people in the club. So that's my husband doing the extractor. They were saying they'd give everybody a chance to spin the extractor. And we have 2 and a third one that needs repair and cleaning. We have 2 of these extractors already that you can borrow from the club. If it's your first year, sometimes a small little extractor is plenty. You don't need to go out and rush out and buy one your first year of beekeeping, even your second sometimes. So that's going to be a really fun event. If it's a real success, we could do another one. Their home is over in Edmonds. So you people on the west side of this greater Seattle area, you're in luck. Then the big event coming up is the Evergreen State Fair. And this is where I start asking Walt and Becky to talk. This is pictures of last year. And we love to do an observation hive, spot the queen, give people a sticker that says I spotted the queen, talking to people. Is that honey tea? I don't know what it is at Walt. Walt can tell you what he's doing. That's Walt in the picture there. He'll talk in a minute. We have lots of brochures to give out, T-shirts by Becky. Okay, I got to let people talk here now, I think. Oh, and the first prize. For the drawing. So I should let probably Walt take over first, okay? Explaining this, the first prize, and okay, not you, Tippy, and the basic fare and the signups. Okay, Walt, are you ready to unmute and do this?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know how good the microphone was on this. Okay, State Fair, August 24th through the 29th, and then the 31st through the 4th. And we're still looking for volunteers to sign up and come out to the fair. And I can't tell you how much fun it is. And I know some people are a little concerned because they're thinking, well, I don't know that I can answer all the questions. Well, most of the questions that people ask are, how do you get into it? What's it like? Do you sell your honey? They're usually pretty simple questions. They don't get too difficult. And if they do, you can always refer them to Eli or one of the others that's at the booth. that has had more experience. But just talking to people about being a beekeeper is actually fun. It is a way of promoting the hobby and pushing it. And if you sell honey, we can't sell it at the fair, but you could bring some, give out samples, hand out cards of how they can get a hold of your honey or how they can get a hold of you to buy honey. That's permissible as far as I know. A couple of people did it last year, and I think it worked out pretty well. If you're an extrovert like Eli, not like me, I'm an introvert. You could do a demonstration at the stage. I'll be on the stage again this year, just answering questions. I like to work with kids because I learned a long time ago that these groups only exist if we get new members in, and the new members are going to be kids as they grow into the hobby. So I like to work with the kids. We're going to have a spinning wheel for prizes on the stage when I'm up there answering questions and talking, and the kids will be able to come up and spin the wheel. If they answer a question, spin the wheel, get a prize. It's a way of encouraging them to participate, get excited, learn about bees. That's really a big part of this is the education. I was a teacher for 15 years, so the education aspect comes in real easy. You saw a picture of the quilt that we're going to be giving away. You get an entry for paying your dues on time. You can also get an additional entry by putting in a 4-hour shift at the fair. If you put in 2 4-hour shifts, you get 2 additional entries. So for every 4-hour shift you put in at the fair, you get an additional entry. The quilt is handmade. You can see it there. The pictures are up. My wife made it. It's twin size. She's sitting here reminding me of that. It's a twin size, just so you know. It's more of a sofa quilt than a bed quilt type of thing. What else do I need to mention, Eli? Well, it's just fun to be there. You also learn a lot because there are other people there, different levels, who are beekeepers that are manning the booth. And if you have questions, you can ask. You can read the materials that we hand out. It's just a really good time. You can sign up early. I think the sign up started now. Is that correct, Eli?
Yes, Sign Up Genius link is in the newsletter.
Okay, so you can sign up now so we can fill the slots. I can't be there as much this year as I was last year, although I will be there quite a bit because I'll fill in any slots that are not filled in. And I really enjoy being there. It's really a good time talking with people and pushing the hobby. So that's it on the state fair.
Honor scholar, honor students.
Oh,
Scholastic honor students, name time.
no. Okay, so we're working on where you may know a student who's in the National Honor Society. They have to put in time to a volunteer organization. Ours qualifies. If you know someone and they'd like to come out, and we're looking at high schoolers to come out and work with the kids. They don't even have to be really that knowledgeable about beekeeping. They just have to be willing to talk to kids and promote the program. So I guess that's it. If anybody has any questions, you can send me an email, ask Eli. If you got carrier pigeons, those work also. Doesn't matter. I'll get them anyway. Anybody have any questions right now?
I forgot to ever mention, hey, Walt, I totally forgot to mention that they get free tickets and parking passes. And usually the fair is really generous with those. And then we'll go to Becky with the t-shirts, but trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, the other thing is a lot of people have somebody else who's going to be at the fair because the kids have something entered in the rabbits or the horses, and especially like horses, the parents have to stay there. Even somebody who can stop by, a beekeeper who can take an hour or two and come over and relieve someone so they can go to lunch. Even that counts. You still get to meet other beekeepers, and we really need that help. But keep that in mind. You may already be there for another reason.
Or if you can stop by to relieve us for a potty break, that helps.
Yeah, Eli, I may be able to do that. My daughter too has been doing bees with me, and she's be a senior this year, but she's also in the equestrian program, so she'll already be there, and we may be able to swing some things.
A number of people have said that. I think that's how Gina Cuff did it one year. Oh, there were a number of parents who did it last year. So just kind of put the word out. And if you realize you're already coming and you would like a free parking pass and admission, which may not be covered for every parent in every organization. So you might want to volunteer enough to get those from us. Okay.
And if they need volunteer hours, make sure you bring their volunteer sheet with them so we can sign it off, show that they put in the hours.
Mm-hmm. And we are a 501c3. That's part of why we would qualify for any kind of volunteer hours that students need like that. Okay, Becky, how about you explain it? Let me find the.
Well, I had a quick question on the Sign Up Genius.
Okay.
It looks like the dates on there, September says 22, not 23. So I don't know if that's.
There's a August. On August, there's a 22nd and then it jumps to 24. The 22nd is a setup.
I'm saying for September, there's some dates in there for September. And they
way down at the bottom.
22.
Way down at the
It's
bottom.
only like 3 days.
At the very bottom. You read through, it starts with, I forget, the 26th or something. And then you go through it, it makes sense. And you get past Labor Day. And then it suddenly says something else about the 22nd and 23rd. Men ran
Right.
into trouble.
Because the dates that are in there for September are from 2022.
Oh, no. Yeah, we'll check that out then right away. I wonder if it's still up from 2022. Does it at the top, does it say 2023? If you go to the very top.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Uh-oh. I'll have to talk to Min. He got caught by the cut and paste. How to make mistakes faster and in duplicate, triplicate, multiplicate. Okay, thanks for catching that.
Sure.
So everybody just check back. It'll probably only take us a day or two to fix that. Anything else? Because Becky's got to show these wonderful t-shirts. And I got last year's t-shirt picture up here too. Okay, Becky, you got to unmute yourself. Let's see. Yes, good.
Okay, this year the t-shirts are black, and the SnoKing Beekeepers is from last year, but it's going on the front. In the back, I found the most wonderful bee. This is how they look at me from my hives. And so it's the beekeeper life. The other thing that at the last minute, I sent Eli some vinyl decals that have our SnoKing Beekeeper logo on it. I don't know if this is a logo, but right now it's ours, I guess. And if someone works more than the 2 hours, or if they want the decal, I put one on my truck, and that's what I sent her a picture of. But it could go on your beekeeping book if you've got one, or anything you'd like. So I'm going to bring those with me. It's just something extra. And those of you bringing teenagers or helpers, I am more than happy to make them a t-shirt too. Now here's the caveat. If you truly believe that you're going to work this year, we're not waiting until you sign up. I'm a one-woman show, and I'm still working my shoulder from rotator cuff surgery. And so I noticed today when I made these, it's taken me a little bit longer than last year. So I'm going to put my email in, and I would like for you to give me your name, the size, and if you don't mind your text, because I get so much email stuff that I don't always go through it, but a text I always see. So if you'll give me that. Now, if you had a t-shirt last year and you like the size, same size shirts, tell me if you thought, oh, I wish I had a smaller shirt or larger, send me that too, because I want to make up as many as I can. I don't want to wait till the last minute to get these out. But I'll put my email. I guess I could give you my telephone number too, and you could message me it. I just need your, the name, the size, and your phone number so that I can even message you back if I have questions. But anyway, these are the t-shirts this year. So any questions to me? No?
My only question would be black. If we've decided to determine the color, it's just that black in an 80-degree day might be a bit warm.
I know. Actually, I ordered these last year, and you make a great point. You really do.
However, we're going to have a better canopy, a larger canopy with more shade. So that's a big help.
Gray might be a possible. I'm just suggesting maybe
Sure.
gray as a compromise with it.
Sure. No, I mean, it's all good. I ended up, when I had some extra money last year, buying these since I don't.
Oh, okay.
So
Hey,
sorry.
if they're already there, go for it.
Yeah.
No worries.
I know I'm from Texas, so you're right. Black is hot. I don't know. Last year I got a good deal and
Hey,
ordered.
that's great. Go
So
for it.
anyway, next year though, I've got the gray in mind. How about that?
Great.
Promise.
No worries.
Promise. So anything else? Is anyone, if you have an issue about sending me your phone number, I promise not to make prank calls and stuff. I put that aside. The police did that. I'm joking. So I'll put my phone number, I'll put my email in case you don't want to provide a phone number. And just give me the sizing, because as many as I can make now will put me ahead of the game. I promise you. And I won't be rushed. So nothing else.
So we're going to have to make it a deadline, like right after the July meeting, maybe. Maybe the July meeting will be the last call, because the third Wednesday of July, whenever that falls, that's going to be about the end of it. You're going to have to get to your size to Becky, even like she said, if you're pretty sure you're going to be able to help. And
Right.
did we make it 2 shifts or 3 in the newsletter? I think I decided that 2 4-hour shifts was, hey, you kind of earned a t-shirt. If Becky's wonderful enough to make them.
And please give me the student's name too, and what size they think they want. I'm happy to do that for them.
And I need to go find my phone and find the picture that Becky sent me of the vinyl sticker. And I don't know where my phone is right now. So I may have to do that later.
Okie doke. Well, I'll put it at the bottom in the chat, all my information.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, real quick, could I get you to say again, Eli, how many, is it just the parking and admittance for the person that's working?
For one for each shift you work.
Okay,
So
perfect.
that's the good part. And they almost always give us extra. So if you need an extra one, let us know. Almost always. Last year was really weird because another bee club got given the wrong passes. It caused a bit of a problem for them, but they got given whole family passes. And everybody could come in, I think it was up to 6 people or something at one time all together. That's not going to happen again. That was not intentional.
Okay.
That was not supposed to happen. So, but we usually, if you need 1 or 2 extra, we almost always can get it for you. And they'll give us, the people like Walt and I, and maybe anybody else that's working the fair as a regular thing, they give us the pass for the entire fair. And that helps too.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry. We have never run out. Seriously.
And Eli, if you update the dates on the sign up Genius, that would work, because I've already signed up for the equestrian part. So this way I can kind of lock down the days and with my wife on who's on paddock duty and who's doing announcing and who's at the bees, who's doing bees. And I really would like my daughter to do the bees as well. So that would be fun.
Yeah. And what's really fun for the younger kids is there's the prizes thing, but the observation hive is really great because people are just, ooh, and you help them see the queen. The queen will be marked. We will never again do an unmarked queen. I think that happened one year. No, you have to be marked, just easier. And then if people want to test themselves, the unmarked queens are inside in the agricultural display building, which also has an observation hive. So that really works well Yeah. Young people and older people love getting an I Spot the Queen sticker. Okay, anything else on the fair? It is our social event too, really, between coming and going, trying to get 3 people into the booth at the busiest times too. And you'll see that on the Sign Up Genius. That really helps. And we're pretty fluid. We can work with just about anything. If you can't do a full 4-hour shift, you tell us, we'll work it out. If you come early, but you can't stay late, you can stay late, but you can't come early, that's fine.
I just want to mention that again, if you have something you would like to demonstrate, we're talking about extracting honey. If somebody wants to do a demonstration on that, we can get you on the stage to do that. And that's something that a lot of people asked about, how you get the honey out of the comb. So if you have something in particular you'd like to demonstrate and you're going to be there, let us know. We'll schedule a time on the stage so you can do that.
Of course, it would be a dry demonstration. You have to pretend the
That's
honey
what I
is
was.
there,
That's what
and
I
you're
was
going to
gonna
have
say.
to mine through it, you
We're gonna have
know.
lots of bees otherwise.
The honey tasting only worked out because when Steve was doing it last year, he had the wooden stirrers there and he had a container that the wooden stirrer went immediately into. And it was like it sealed up. There was nothing sitting out. So we can't have anything sitting out, but that's how he managed to do the honey tasting.
Right.
But you could do an awful lot. I mean, we'd be happy to provide all the equipment. And if you have something else you'd like to do, thinking journeyman service points, you want to try a presentation out. And if you want to try it out before you do it, the stage, incidentally, is just a 1 step up stage. That's all it is. Open area, people wander by, stop, they can sit down. If we have shade, people are more likely to stay, you know, but it's informal. This isn't like you are committing to a podium. I think they will let you have a microphone. If you would like a microphone, we can get microphones. And if you just want to light a smoker, that's one that's popular. What else have we done? I really want to do the one where you explain how you fly like a bee, but somebody has to cut out the coralplex wings so that we can do that. That one I think would be really fun. Bees don't just flap. They have a system where they gain uplift on the downstroke. It's the way they do it. It's kind of like a figure 8.
Leading edge vortices. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can get the there's a video, Simon Reese, How Bees Fly, National Honey Show. I'll get you the link, and it's just kind of fun. I want to have some kitty size ones and some maybe some adult size ones, and just practice flying like a bee.
And hopefully Eli will do her bee dance.
Right, and then we got to do head, thorax, abs, and wings. That one.
Sure.
Yes.
Yep, that's absolutely we'll do that.
Okay, sorry, but I got to run. I got some other
Okay.
things going on.
Anything
Thank you very
else?
much. Anybody has any questions, contact me.
Yes, and it's again, email is in the newsletter. I'll get more of this stuff onto the website this week. So
Thank
that
you.
the stacks are there. Okay. So I know we're just so enthusiastic about it, and that quilt is absolutely beautiful. I really have an urge to talk about YouTubing, because with all this rain we've been having, there's a couple of really interesting speakers that I've been seeing stuff by. David Peck is really big. He is a research consultant, actually being paid by betterbee.com, but not promoting their products, but actually doing research and doing talks. And of course, their name is up every time he talks. Zach Lamaze is is he finished? I think he might be in his postdoctorate at University of Maryland. He's very interesting and talking on things that really impact beekeepers. Like, is drone trapping really working? Or is it backfiring in our hives? And what is a mite bomb? Do these things exist? And are they working the way we think they're working? And can we stop them and protect our bees? I was going to put a picture of a green drone frame in case anybody here was new enough they'd never tried a green drone frame. and seen people talk about drone trapping. We talk quickly about it in beginner, for example, but I'm not sure that everyone's tried it. And then I just grabbed a couple of screenshots. This is one of Zach Lamas's. We're sampling the wrong bees. Varroa mites like drones, and we should be looking at drones. And we've known as a long time for beekeepers that something weird happens in late July, August, and we can have treated in the spring. We can have done the mite washes all year up to that point, and bam, suddenly we have varroa mites coming out our ears. And this graph probably doesn't make immediate sense. But if you go to this talk, he does a great job of explaining, well, part of it is because Varroa preferred drones, only actually apparently really reproduced in drones in the Asian honeybee, Apis cerana, from which it jumped interspecies transmission into Apis mellifera, our honeybee. And when it did that, it went into worker brood as well as drone brood, but it still prefers drone brood and adult drones. It's not just the brood. So when we sample, we actually would be better off watching what's happening with the drones. There's more mites per drone apparently in the hive, but how many drones do you have? And when do the drones start disappearing? When do the bees start kicking them out of the hive in the July dearth? And he raises some really interesting questions. When the drone population drops, where do the varroa mites go? Onto the worker bees. So he's one of those people who's finding an answer to something that we as beekeepers, small scale, have been watching, and we've known it's been happening for a long time. And this is one factor. So I really like research that actually says something that is of interest to us. And Zach Lamas is doing that kind of work, and David Peck. This is a huge, long interview, 2 hours and 23 minutes. But this one by David Peck, what's neat about it is in like the first 20 minutes, he sort of explains the problem with the EPA, the FDA, the regulations, USDA. How did oxalic acid ever get approved at all in the United States? Why is it so hard? What the problems are. That extended release Swedish sponge method has now been put on hold because the EPA said individual states cannot make their own rules about it. It will come from the EPA. He explains a lot of that. Brings back memories of my 9-month certificate in clinical trials, which is a 9-month certificate, and you can't believe how complicated the government can make something. The FDA and the pharmaceutical companies, and why our drugs cost so much. He brought back memories of sitting through those classes. The first 20 minutes out of this 2 hours and 20 minutes kind of gets you a good sense for what's going on and why you're hearing things that don't make any sense to the layperson. And actually, I wanted to ask, does anybody really want to talk about something first? Like, people who are beginners especially have not seen this multiple swarms from a single hive phenomenon. And people are calling me about it. I wish I had those pictures that I was just looking at. 3 swarms come out of a hive in one day. How in the world does that happen? Well, one of them's huge and the other 2 are smaller. And experienced beekeepers, you can speak to this too, I'm sure. What you're seeing is the primary swarm came out, the older queen, the parent queen, she came out and was delayed by weather to the point that the queen cells emerged. And the bees go right on and do a second and third swarm, and they do them like back to back. They're in swarm mode, the whole hive's in swarm mode, and you don't really have time to intervene as a beekeeper. If you did have time to intervene, you see the big swarm go out. I don't know if we tell beginners this in our classes, but when you see the first half or even 75% of your hive go out of the hive and land on a branch, hopefully low enough down that you can get to it, but move out of the hive, you are supposed to get into the hive as fast as you can and see how many swarm cells are left. Because bees sometimes with the hormones, and they've been forced to stay inside because of the weather. And this is when this really hits, is with the really lousy weather we're having. People are going to be seeing this who may not be prepared for it. Big swarm comes out, and right afterwards, small swarm, and maybe another one. And everything got so confused inside the hive, there wasn't a chance for the bees to read the manual and either not do so many after swarms or not do any at all and let the queens kill each other. Instead, you've ended up with all these swarms up in your tree. So I kind of wanted to warn people, this kind of weather makes that happen. And this kind of weather is the reason that you didn't go into your hives, because it was horrible, miserable weather. And inspections didn't get done maybe when they should have. And I'd love to hear other people's ideas about the blackberry flow. Mine's a wash. It got poured rain on. It's just starting to bloom where I am. Anybody else?
Over here on the Olympic Peninsula, we have some blooms, and there's still some that are just starting to bud because we had inclement weather too, just like you guys.
Is it going to work out, Tony? Is it going to be a nice long flow and they can get max? Okay, that actually can be good.
With this rain that we got, because we one year, I'm not sure if it was 2018, I have the stats. The blackberries came out late and it was so dry, there was no nectar. And we had low honey productions because of it. But I think now with this rain that we got over a 1/4 inch the other day, and then I got another 1,700 of an inch, I think, yesterday. I think that's enough to maybe get the nectar flowing, and then with the sun, I think more of the the Himalayan blackberries will come out.
Yeah, mine were still tight. The buds were tight like that just like a week or so ago. Now they're just opening up. So waiting to see if the weather improves enough. So the good news is, for people who maybe are newer to beekeeping, rain in the middle of the summer or going into the summer is not always a negative. Sometimes it keeps nectar flows going. Sometimes you get an extra burst of something nectar producing in like July when you wouldn't normally have gotten it, because there was a little bit of rain there in late June, early July. But I'm hearing other people, no problem at all. Their blackberry flows made it. And maybe if people don't really want to talk about it openly, just put it in the chat, because we're all curious. Are you getting the really good flow? Or are you like me, sitting here saying, please stop raining on my blackberries?
I've got a question. I took note that the blackberries by us started on June 6th. They started to open. I'm on the border of like Bothell and Linwood. And so I'm curious to know, do blooms, like if it's cold and it's wet, does the plant still open? Does it still bloom? Does anyone know? Because I'm, only been doing beekeeping for a year, so I don't really know a lot about the blackberry plant.
Any ideas? I can't, somebody's not coming through clearly. I'll mute myself if that helps.
Don, I think your microphone is broken. And Eli, you're still on mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So, okay, now I'm on unmute. Yeah, Dawn, try another speaker, another microphone, or put it in chat if you can't. Because I don't really know the answer to that question. But there's also blackberries that are in the sun, that are in the shade, have different drainage. The blackberry flow can be very extended. We usually refer to it as like a month, or it can come all at once. This is looking more like staggered, which actually could be good. Don't lose hope.
Hello.
Yes.
I think it's good that we had rain. Basically out here in Kitsap County, we had a ½ inch of rain over the last 5 days. Where I live on Hood Canal, the blackberry is in the first 25% of bloom. And the next 10 days are supposed to be sunny and warm. So I think it's like full speed ahead. I think we're going to see a good blackberry flow.
And what area are you?
Seabeck, Washington.
Okay, this is Michael Johnson. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and Michael, I'm just north of you. I'm up at Port Ludlow, and we have microclimates, but that's it. Some of them are in shade, some of them are not, different drainage and everything, like Eli said. But they're coming out, and then there's some that are behind it. I think we're going to have a good blackberry flow.
I agree. If you look at the blackberry along Highway 3, it's pretty advanced. And even in Kitsap County, out along Hood Canal where I live, south-facing blackberry is pretty advanced. But in general, it's about 25% end of the bloom. And I consider the rain we had, even though it wasn't very much, a big plus.
I agree. Yeah. My bees were even out in the overcast, and I had a bucket with a lid on it, and I have rocks in there and water. I must have had about 50 bees on there, and they're soaking up, they're drinking the water, so they must be grabbing nectar and grabbing the water off that. And I hadn't seen it do that for a couple of weeks.
I agree. My neighbors have a water feature. And in 50-degree weather, overcast days, there's thousands of bees on the concrete water feature, hauling water back to the colony, probably to feed larvae.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. You're all so positive and hopeful. I put in Varroa treatments because actually I put Formic on. I haven't really checked the exact temperatures, but it's been really cold where I am. I always complain about my little fog and clouds collect at the top of my little ridge. But it does mean that you don't have to worry about overheating your hives right now. So that could be positive. So if anybody wants to make comments about Varroa treatments, if anyone's interested in that, I'll let you know how the formic acid goes, because I figured I was safe. It couldn't possibly go too low in temperature, but it might. And the queen's mating. So far, I'll get to the queen rearing workshop. That's gone pretty well. Nature finds a way. And the queens do have a window of time in which they can go out to mate. You know, they say 6 to 10 days post-emergence. I think they can wait longer than that if they have to, sort of like the swarms. They wait if they have to. And then on the Facebook page, there were questions about, well, can you really inspect your hives at low temperatures? Which sometimes leads to the swarm problem on a cold, wet spring like this. People worry too much about it, and they don't know how to make a quick inspection. Anybody wants to talk about that, be happy to. That, you know, kind of checking the bottom of your upper brood box, tipping it, so that you can actually see swarm cells. Not a perfect way to check, but it's something. Looking at how crowded your hive is, making decisions like that. If anybody needs to kind of talk about that or walk through it. But if putting off an inspection is going to make your hive go into swarming, you have to make a decision. And in Western Washington, I am used to hearing people on Facebook say, why in the world are you in your hives when it's 50 degrees and overcast outside? because we really don't have a choice. We hold the umbrella for a friend to install a nuke. It seriously happens in Western Washington. We try to avoid it, but it can happen. Honey extraction, somebody was trying to do that. I have a whole set of strategies for that. If you end up trying to extract honey, your reserve honey that you left on the hives, or you're lucky enough you got that first maple flow or whatever, and you'd like to extract some. There's a lot of strategies for that if anyone's interested. People have used the sun lamps in their extra bathroom. It closed up a small room like a bathroom or a closet, run the heat in there until they warmed everything up. Instead of trying to heat the whole house to 80 degrees, which is another option. There are all kinds of options to trying to extract honey in Western Washington when you can't get an 80-degree day. So is everyone ready to hear about the queen rearing workshop? I'm kind of excited. We've had a great time. There's probably been about 15 of us total that have been working on this, although there's about 5 or 6 people that spent the most time. And they're going to divide up the queens, which I explain at the end. And then we're going to do round 2. So this is only round 1. And here we are at the end. This picture is actually from the end of round 1. So we set up this, the next one is going to be July 1st to August 21st. Our queen raising workshop was not to see if we could get the very maximum number of bees produced. It wasn't to come up with the most efficient way to do it. It wasn't to try to do things the way the commercial beekeepers do. We were trying to solve the problem of how in the world do you graft queens if you work, say, a Monday, Friday job and you can only work on the weekends? So that was really our goal, is find a like every 7 days grafting, raising queens protocol. And even if you aren't grafting, maybe you're doing walk-away splits to procedure cells, swarm cells, for example, trying to find something that would work. And for Western Washington bee clubs, that includes like the cold, damp spring we just went through, something that works. So we came up with a timeline and tried it out. It works pretty well. We had to look at the impact of weather. It's not ideal conditions. We have to make adjustments. Things that are shown on the internet, doing 2-frame nukes, you just mating nukes, hey, just 2 frames, you just slap them in there, put them out there, no insulation. They're all just sitting out. Yeah, that isn't going to work for us until July, if then. So how are we going to do these sorts of things and meet this non-ideal conditions? Rainy weather, wind. And we looked at how we could do shortcuts, but some steps are essential. You'll read a lot of things on the internet. This really helps your acceptance rate. Ooh, you're going to get more queens this way, percentage-wise. We had to kind of look at that and say, how can we do it on a once-a-week basis? Oh, and first I want to thank all hundreds and hundreds of you have donated, even just your dues and your just taking a class from us as a donation. But there were some that were big donators. The Dunser Family Foundation and the Wanda Booth, who sold me equipment so cheaply because she knew I was going to use it for this club apiary that I consider that a hundreds of dollars donation. She said, if you're going to use it to help people raise queens, great. And very few clubs have a club apiary, which is really what we have. The Greenquist family, a lot of equipment, and the Grimes family. So I just wanted you to know there's been some big donors, but you smaller people all really are what keep it going. But a big donation every once in a while is nice. And most of this was in equipment. And that alone helps a lot. With Wanda, she even had the specialized queen equipment as she downsized in retirement. So round 2 is going to be a repeat of round 1. So I just figured I'd put the dates up for round 2. We had to do a lot of preparation. We actually started in May for the other, actually April, the very end of April, we started for the other session, doing preparation and inventorying and saying, okay, are we going to have enough brood? Are we going to have enough honey stores, pollen frames, can we do this? And especially in a cold, damp spring, that was actually a problem. Every week, you're going to have to be checking that everything has enough feed, especially when you start having 19 mating nukes, which is what we ended up with the first time. And you're keeping those individually separate. Sometimes they can share a feeder, depending on the type of mating nuke. But you have to start, first of all, by setting up your cell builder. Now, on the internet, you'll read that you have starters and finishers. If you're doing this small scale once a week, you just have to have a cell builder. And we found that there's a sort of a minimum size in our cold springs that doesn't match everything you're told on the internet. But you set that up, and then you come back a week later. It's going to have some supersedure cells. There will be eggs somehow that were in there. So just take those out. Graft, move the larvae into the little cups. And on that day, set up your mating nukes, even though you're not going to use them till the next week. But your cell builder is now ready for the grafts to go into. I'll show some pictures so it makes maybe more sense. People who've already done this are going, oh yeah, yeah. The third Saturday you meet, I think I took out the setup mating nukes. That did not work. Destroy the supersedure cells on the ones you did the week before. And I can explain why it didn't work. It has to do with, we are transferring queen cells on the third Saturday into mating nukes, but the queen cells are not what's called ripe. A ripe queen cell that's ready to emerge exudes pheromone and actually makes a mating nuke queen right. You can't put it in if there's a chance for the bees to make supersedure cells. You have to have cleared any possibility of supersedure cells from a mating nuke when you put an unripe cell in. And you can always give away queen cells if you have too many. Then the next week, week 4, you're going to come back. You're going to graft more if you need to. Maybe you've got some empty spots. You're checking acceptance. Okay, we could redo some of these. By the week 5, your queens should be making mating flights. Week 6, you should be seeing eggs. Then you're checking the laying pattern after that, and then you're distributing the queens. So we used all different kinds of mating nukes. We didn't have enough to do very many 5-frame, but the 2-4 frame with a feeding system on top. Okay, we could do that. Queen excluder or separate inner covers, keeping them separate. Come out and it's so easy. And you could do like an 8-frame, but that takes a lot of bees. And one thing we found was with a cool, wet spring, we had to sort of ration the number of brood frames we had per mating nuke. A little tricky. We ended up, it's all sprawled out, all these different types of mating nukes, but it was a good experience. Worked out a system on the backs of these hives here. You can see that we've got the cards. This one has 3 cards because this is a 3-way with the dividers inside, a 10-frame divided into 3 mating nukes. So it ended up with 3 cards to track each queen cell that we put in there. And this makes so much more sense if you come out. We now have a storage barn. The club doesn't have the storage barn. They're using the landowner's storage barn. Cell builders and mating nukes, we're looking at the strength. What's the minimum strength we can get away with when we don't have a lot of brood? Can we use insulated tops? Solid bottom boards or slide in bottom boards. And then pollen patties, lots of young bees. You're working a lot with the young bees. Anybody who comes, even for one day, we have not asked for a commitment that people show up, but come in, we'll explain what we're doing at that point. And maybe next year we'll do this more formally, asking a commitment all the way through. But we can explain that we need the queens to lay in a frame that we can find later. This is the ideal type frame to take, and it's partly drawn out. Put it into the brood nest right at the time, a strong laying queen, right at the time you want her to lay, and then 4 days later, come back. This was the only thing that we couldn't really do on a 7-day basis. This was the one thing that you really got stuck. You had to come in, or you have to search all over brood frames to find larvae the correct age. Just barely molted is what it's called, not really hatched. The egg hatched, but actually it molts into the first larval form. So if you put it in 4 days before you're grafting, you've got the right size larvae. And we tried different lights. We could use some more different magnifiers and lights as such. Here's Melanie. She had pretty good success for first time grafter. It was amazing. She has a pretty good, and over on the right, this is what we're trying to graft. We're trying to do ones that either barely have a C shape or smaller. The top one, they're clear actually, even if they look cloudy. You're trying to move a larva this is the largest you're really supposed to take. It works, but it is tricky to do. If you don't have good eyesight, you need a magnifier. Bright LED lights help a lot. And keeping the frames wet with a towel. So we did a lot, we learned a lot, and went to check acceptance. And you can tell right away just by the way the nurse bees are all over. These are the cups she put into I think it shows her, it shows her with the frame there. You do it, then you turn it over, insert it into the grafting frame, and the bees are all over it by the next couple of days if you've done it correctly. Got to check acceptance to a certain amount to know if you need to graft again. That's a midweek thing you can either do or not do. If you want to, if you can get people to come in midweek, you can. Ideally, you would, but you could just wait 7 days. Here we're checking before the 7 days are over, so the cells are not capped yet. That's kind of good to do because you know what your take is. For example, here's a larvae that's too old. The reason I know it's too old, the bees capped it over before it really developed. And there's a couple more there. These were right. They could draw them out. The other thing that's really neat to do is to look at how much royal jelly there is. See that white there compared to an empty cell? See the white? Yes. Lots full of royal jelly for the queen to develop on. Then once those cap over, you take that little cup out and put it into one of those mating nukes you made up. But before that, we couldn't resist candling. So getting a bright LED flashlight, here we are, candling and taking a look to see the queens inside. Then you've put them into the mating nukes. There shall be only one, right? One per mating nuke. This means that's how the apiary exploded. We definitely could use some more 2-way and 3-way nukes because doing individual nukes takes a lot of brood stores and you have to run around feeding them. So, then you come back, check for emergence. And again, now we're on a very Saturday schedule. We can do this on a 1 week. And then there's the perilous mating flight. Notice that dragonfly perched there, just dying to take out your queen bee, which even a virgin queen bee is larger and shinier than the other bees. And we went through do you mark them before the mating flight or not? Nobody was a real purist about it. I'd kind of agree with the don't mark them first. You might be putting a target on their backs. Okay, so did they return? We're doing this on Saturdays. And then we start looking for the eggs on that return. Some were really fast. And proofing, actually seeing enough eggs, larvae, and if you wait an extra Saturday, seeing capped brood. And when you see it capped, then you can be looking at a pattern and saying, yes, compact, yes, worker brood, so that even a beginner looking quickly couldn't get it wrong. It's either worker or it's the bubble domed drones. This was really great. This is the finale last Saturday where we're seeing capped brood in some of them, the earliest rats. So I haven't even told anybody yet that I've calculated out the queens And I figured it was about, we have at least 10 proven queens. I think we have 12, maybe 13. So I figured it comes out to about 5 hours per queen for people who spent time in the apiary helping. And that included actually some startup prep work that we did before we really started this. We could have used twice as many volunteers, but 78 hours, that's a lot, especially when people have to drive to the apiary. It's not their home. And actually the person who got the top number of hours, I don't think Melanie minds me saying, she does have an advantage. She can walk to the club apiary, but that's okay. That's okay. In life, every once in a while you get an advantage. So going about every 5, then separating up, adding up about those 10 queens. And I think there will be a couple more. So, and then the other people, they did 3 hours or less. We'll keep track of their hours. If they come back for round 2, hey, great. The people who are on the other list, thanks to everybody who came. It really helps. I think this is a great club team building experience. And that would be one reason for doing it. The other reason is seeing what grafting is like and deciding if you really, really want to do it yourself. As a club activity, pretty good. As a do-it-yourself, I've been through it a couple times doing it myself, and I didn't think it was worth it with a small apiary myself. So the winners, I guess you call them, get to come pick up theirs. And here's one more picture just of, you're trying to get, where's the one you need here? Oh, this is like the oldest you should take, and they're clear. Oh, it's really hard to spot them. And sometimes you just have to take something that's 12 hours older than you really wanted, than the ideal. And it will work even with those, but you're trying to get the youngest you can. Not, here's a too fat one, too far advanced. These are too far advanced. You want them when they're still clear and haven't curved. I think that's a picture one there. And it is tricky, but people get the knack of it eventually. Let's see, do I have anything else important? And of course, the best way to time it is put in a frame that's your donor grafting frame, put it into the queen's hive, the queen you decided you want, into her brood nest 4 days in advance, mark the top of the frame, feed the hive, and come back. And I say feed the hive for a funny reason. We have rain dearth. One year I was very embarrassed. I'm going to demonstrate grafting to people. And I just trot out there, here, I've got my donor frame marked on top that I put in 4 days earlier. I didn't feed the hive any liquid feed. They went through and cannibalized the entire frame. I actually had checked and had seen the eggs in there. And they stripped it all off because they went into rain dearth. Only in Western Washington do we have serious rain dearth, I think. So that was what I really, really wanted to say. I could talk forever. Everyone knows that. Any comments on this? This is not your most efficient method. That's the first thing I would admit to anybody. Anything else here? No. Comments, thoughts? Would you do this? Hey, and all of you, you want to pick up your queens, or you can wait till round 2. If you'd rather not take a queen now, we'll call the next person in line to get a queen. So it didn't come out to an even 5 hours, but I figured we'll start with those 10 queens. I don't want to distribute a queen till we've seen maybe her capped brood, unless somebody's willing to take her that early. And I know some people want ripe queen cells, and they're going to have to talk to me about how they're going to pick those up. That doesn't work into a every 7 day system. Somebody has to come midweek to either graft them or pick them up. And we could get one person to graft, even if it wasn't the person that picked up, quite possibly. We got a couple of people that are really pretty good at grafting.
Just let me know. I just need to.
Yeah.
I've got some frame nukes I can drop them in.
Yeah, we want to come
build
pick
them
it
up.
And we have the colors of the queens written out. So, and they're marked. I think they're just virtually all marked. We got them marked in that last round on Saturday. You were there, Ty, so you know. So, yeah, just whenever you can come by.
I'll text you ahead of time and make sure it's.
Yeah, do that. And then you know the system, you know where they are. You can mark the card you took them. Yeah. And then Melanie, of course, that's easy because she's close to me. Is anyone else on here? I think James said he couldn't make it tonight. He's our beginner instructor, incidentally. I'll stop the share screen so we can see each other because sometimes it's kind of nice. And we can totally stop talking about queens. I'm just really kind of thrilled that it did work out. Not a high yield. Michael?
Yeah, I kind of wondered what your percentages of returned virgin queens were.
It was once we had seen them emerge and had spotted them, it was good. Let me see if I could add it up. Because we actually saw I think we got 13 out of the 19 came back. But that didn't always guarantee that we saw them again later. So and we're checking on every 7 days too. So things could have happened. Like we think we saw her after the mating flight, but we didn't, is always possible. So it's not a good system that way. Like the emergence, we had to take a look at the cell, which if you put the little orange cell protector that JCBZ, I think that's who does it, and you use that, okay, you would ordinarily wouldn't need that. But we're taking unripe cells and putting them in. So you need it to protect the cell so the bees don't tear it down. Because that unripe queen cell, when we're transferring it 7 days after graft. We're not waiting till it's ripe. She's not exuding enough pheromone to impact anything. So then when we come back another 7 days later, we're coming back days after she emerged. And we're looking at what's left in that cell protector of the wax cell and saying, okay, that looks like a clean incision. She came out. If it's raggedy or ripped away in any way, we say, no, she didn't make it out. So it's not a perfect stats method that way, but you can get a pretty good acceptance, a pretty good take, a pretty good return. We hit the weather right, actually, compared to what's happening right now. And that last few, I'm not sure about those last few because we replaced a couple that were grafted at the 527. We replaced a couple of those with ones that were grafted a little later. So yeah, the stats are not going to be good on something like this.
In general, what do you think the best time of the year in Western Washington is to do this?
With this cold, damp spring, I would have said, during a flow, but here we are basically in rain dearth. And that causes a lot of trouble when you go in to look for eggs and they're not there. They should have hatched, but they've been cannibalized. And the up-down rain dearth is a real problem. And then you're trying, when you have 4 overwintered hives, it screwed things up. Hey, at least this proves it can work when everything's against you. Because when you come out of winter, usually you have tons of brood with an overwintered hive. Boy, those queens, they're just going. Well, the way the rain hit in our area, I'm Maltby, which is South Snohomish County. What happened was there was a week where things warmed up to 50s at night. The queens, the hives just went boom. Whew, that was back beginning of May. Does anybody remember the actual week that it was? Okay, everything looked really good. Brooding up. Well, then it got cold again. And then finally, because of that week of 50 degrees nights, everything came into nectar flow at the same time. The cherry trees, pear trees, apple trees, all the native, even the native berries, everything had been delayed. Things that should have been producing nectar and pollen in February, March, were doing it in May. It was totally screwed up. So this is really weird. Never seen this before. I'm only 9 years into this. Okay. What happened was we had this brood buildup started like it's supposed to. Yes. And we're going to have that brood buildup. And then when the blackberry flow comes, we're going to have the maximum number of foragers per hive, and we're going to get that surplus honey, right? Except when everything came in at once, the bees flipped. It's like a switch flipped, and they went from brood rearing to nectar crazy. They backfilled the nests in hive after hive. And a lot of other people talking on the Facebook group, talking on the phone, emails, they found the same thing. Their hives went nectar crazy before they built population. They should have built their population up, and they stopped and went nectar crazy instead. Then we go into rain dearth. So we've been feeding pollen patty like crazy to try to keep the brood going while we run this project and try to get the brood to stock the cell builders. I didn't mention those, which really have to have good young bees in there. You know, emerging cap brood is ideal. So, and 19 mating nukes. It was crazy. I've never seen that where they backfill in the middle of what should be the population growth period.
Gotcha. Thank you.
It was weird. Every year something new happens. It's fun. Okay. Oh, Ron, I totally forgot to ask you. Oh, he's becoming a grandpa. Oh, okay. Ron is starting. It's in the newsletter. Oh, that's what I forgot to ask. He is starting the queen rearing workshop at Granite Falls. He doesn't do it, I don't think, as formally as me. Yes, congratulations to Ron. That's pretty distracting if you're going to become a grandpa again. That does take priority. Hard to believe over bees, but it does. So, what's Dawn saying here? Let me look in the chat. Okay. Yeah, Dawn couldn't get a speaker to work. So in the chat, Dawn is saying he understands you need 2 days of 70-degree weather to get the blackberry flow going. And just because there are blossoms doesn't mean you'll get honey. Oh, that's discouraging. Okay, so it just has to warm up while they're still blooming for 2 days is what Dawn is saying. Okay, so the weather forecast, that looks looking good. And then, but blackberry will give off more nectar after a day or two of rain. 2018, the blooms came out early and then it got cold. And that's what somebody was mentioning about, was it Tony, 2018 or something? Most people I know did not produce much blackberry honey in 2018. Okay, yeah. And if you can get a sunny day at 50 degrees in March, go for it. When Michael mentions that. And then read Dawn's comments in chat on grafting. Dawn says, I've done a fair amount of grafting. It does take up a bit of resources. Yeah, that takes away from honey production that I'm focused on. So last season, Dawn took 2 frames of eggs, caproot nurse bees out of the largest hives as swarm control. Good reason to be doing it right then. But the 2 frames in plastic nuke boxes, moved them back to my yard from where they were placed for honey production. So managed to get 6 nuke boxes with just 2 frames and a feeder in the boxes. And all of them produced mated queens and eventually colonies. So basically walk away splits with 100% return from those mating flights.
Yeah, it looks like, yeah.
Yeah, yes. And it happens. And it, somebody said, it depends on whether the dragonflies are out, you know, what else is happening. Okay, and Steve's been, he's not allowed to, he's been gagged by his computer, he says. Can't talk.
I have a question, but it's not about grafting.
Oh, that's okay. I think we pretty well killed grafting, haven't we?
I thought it was really cool, actually. So thank you very much for presenting that. My question is, if you end up with a queenless hive right around now, what are the pros and cons of going to get a queen versus letting them just reruin themselves?
Yeah, you have to look at that queen calendar thing. Do you really want to wait? And you're a first year beekeeper, right? 2 hives. Do you still have 2 hives?
Yep.
Okay. And you're kind of a shady spot too, right? It gets some sun.
It's like half and half. It gets sun.
Yeah. So it's not optimal. And they've had to draw out all the comb because you started with bare foundation, right?
Yep.
Yeah. See, this is a slow start in a horrible, cold, damp spring. If you wait to raise a queen, which is the economic way, right? You take eggs and you let the hive that you think, and they may not be missing the queen too. A lot of people think they're missing queens right now. Because
Yeah, I'm not sure. This is a hypothetical. I had the hives attacked over the weekend and I haven't gone in yet to see, but there's a lot of activity. So I'm hopeful. I just was curious if that
was this the bear issue?
Yeah.
They actually attacked the hives?
It knocked over one of the hives and like the top box of one of the other ones, but left the brood boxes.
Okay, Maria was saying she would like some help with electric fence, doesn't quite know how to put it up. Is there anybody who's a beekeeper who would help?
I've been watching YouTube. So it's okay.
And
Maria, where are you located?
I'm in Woodinville, like sort of near Maltby, a bit south.
Okay.
Yeah, if somebody could help her, can you message her or go back to the Facebook discussion group for SnoKing? I think Maria asked on there for help, and I have no ideas. I know you can't just throw a couple of wires up. It's got to be a little more than that, especially when the bear has succeeded once. You got to do it right. Correct number of wires. Yeah, and then bait it. Make sure they zap their little tongue or nose on some peanut butter bacon that you put on the wires. Sounds mean, but already had a taste. They're going to come back and they're going to try a little harder. And that big shaggy fur can just go right through 1 or 2 wires. And I don't know if it's volts or amps, but you need the one that's a little higher and you need them spaced so they can't.
Need the volts.
Yeah,
Volts,
that was
okay.
very confusing. I will say, I don't know if they actually got any honey. So
that smell. Yeah, it's even a few larvae. They're going to be back.
Yeah.
On.
Maria, you could drop me a note. My wife, I know electric fences, but I don't have the time. But the other news is my wife knows electric fences, and she set them up for our horses. And so my wife may have some time, and she also knows bees. She's familiar with bees, and they won't bother her. She's got her own bee suit and what have you. So drop me a note, and we'll see what schedules look like.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that would be absolutely wonderful because, wow, that's specialty knowledge we need.
Well, for one of them use a solar fencer because you don't have a proximity out there, and that may be a good option too, depending on where the apiary is.
That is what I got.
Okay.
Great. But back to the queen issue, if you are doing all this buildup, your hives are never going to get big enough by the end of the summer if you don't resolve the queen issue fast. And I hope you're feeding like crazy, pollen sub and liquid feed because of the rain dearth we've had, because you got to draw out all that comb to get everybody to where ideally you would have as much as 2 deeps of drawn comb per hive you're going to overwinter. And when they lose a queen, lose their focus, it's really hard to get that. So actually the first thing you do is the ultimate queen test, right? Hopefully you remember the ultimate queen test.
Eggs.
Yeah, you put those in and you mark the top of that frame and you come back, and if worker eggs are put in and they don't have a queen, they'll make supersedure cells within the week. If they have a queen or believe they have a queen, they will raise out that worker brood. If they don't raise out the worker brood, you're in dearth and you have to feed them more, even though you're looking at the hive and you don't see any problem. If they take your eggs and scrape them up and are getting rid of them, cannibalizing them, then the test isn't going to work. But the ultimate queen test is just absolutely essential. You have to do that. And the queens are missing in action. I was going to put that. I didn't put that on a slide. Queens missing in action right now is a big problem. Usually it's July dearth, right? Everybody who's experienced on here every year answers the questions about where's my queen? How did I lose a queen in the late July? And you didn't. The bees have gone into dearth, and bees are very practical. Forget that save the children first nonsense. They are not going to try to raise babies when they don't have enough to feed the adults. It is not the adults starve first. It is not efficient. Nature says if you are going to want to make this hive survive, you feed the workers, and then the workers can raise whatever brood there's enough stores for. Bees are not, they don't think the way we do. If they have a little honey and no nectar flow, and you're not giving them an artificial nectar flow, feeding them liquid syrup, they can decide they are not going to raise brood. That is sufficient dearth, even though you see some honey there. So you kind of have to watch, especially if you took honey off after the blackberry flow, which is not a problem, Maria. You're probably not having that. But even people who have thought everything was going great, there was all this buildup and there's lots of workers there, but all those workers still have to be fed. And so actually hives will drop in weight if you leave all the honey on after the blackberry flow. And that big population, especially the Italians, those Italifornians, they were the absolute worst on this. They would really do that. They'd maintain the high population, stop raising the brood, feed that huge population of workers, and your actual hive weight would actually start dropping. But the eggs disappear, and people go, I lost the queen. So the test in that one is the ultimate queen test, but it's also ultimate queen test and feed. I hope that helps. I would do it first before you go out and buy a queen, put her in, and they reject her, and you just lost another $45. Or the faster, more sure way is the queen on a frame of her own brood.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. That was actually my second question as well, was feeding, because I put a super on because they had filled 2 boxes on one of the hives, and I wasn't sure if I should keep feeding or not.
Until you have all the drawn comb or almost all the drawn comb you need for the winter.
Okay.
Your first winter, we're going to go for the 2 deeps. And yes, lots of people do not overwinter in a full 2 deeps. Some do it in a deep and a western. There's even the people who do it in a deep. But your first winter, and a deep and a western or 2 above it is the same as 2 deeps. I'm just saying 2 deeps worth. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to start saying it that way. You feed until you've got the drawn comb you want your first year.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, because bees are so funny and the rain dearth is so funny. Every year it changes. So.
The good news, Maria, I had mine. I didn't get my bees for various reasons last year until the 9th of July. And I fed them like mad, but they all made it into the spring.
Yeah. And that's because you fed them like mad. You let them draw out the stores, you let them draw out the comb, and it was a fortune in sugar, wasn't it?
Yeah, I felt like I was canning fruit. Yeah, I was making so damn much sugar, but it got them through.
Yeah. And the club has had to pay for a lot of sugar for this apiary because it was a lot of sugar to try to keep everybody raising brood. And the pollen patties, I didn't have time to make them up. So we had to buy pollen patties because we couldn't let them stop raising brood. And ordinarily it wouldn't be a problem. But you ask them to do something unusual and the weather goes unusual. Anybody seen the triple swarm thing? There was one of my former students sent me pictures, and I have no idea where my phone is. I'm going to have to post on Facebook group the picture of the vinyl stickers that Becky was talking about making for people that volunteer even more than 2 shifts at the fair. We'll give you incentives, but you'll love it when you get there anyway. You'll want to spend every day there, trust me.
Oh, and then the other thing to note is a dropping of 400 hives at Dairyland, just south of Snohomish.
Okay, Ty, go ahead and explain. And I don't
Yeah.
anything you can do.
I doubt there's anything I can do, but Dairyland is just south of Snohomish on the Snohomish Monroe Road. They purchased a silage bunker and I suppose 30 acres, something like that, and have been doing some improvements to that area. But I drove past, or my daughter drove past a week ago and said, "You're not going to believe this, they're dropping hives out there." And I'm like, "Oh, they're probably dropping totes." She goes, "No, they're hives." And so I went out there. Yes, they're dropping hives, and I walked out with my suit on to them. Talk about an angry set of bees. They have 48 pallets of 8 hives each. So yeah. So they're sitting out there, and they're less than a mile from from where I'm at, and so we will see what happens. But I'm go into a defensive stance with robbing screens and things like that, and I'm going to have to be right on the watching for mites and what have you with the interlopers in the area.
Yeah, for those of you who are fortunate enough to live in rather isolated areas, I push robbing screens a lot when I teach classes. And actually with this mite bomb problem, they said one of the things is that actually it's robber lure. Your bees get sucked out to go rob out weak hives that are heavily mite infested and return with a load of mites as well as a load of honey. So you can't do a lot about that, but you can with robbing screens help cut down drift. And if you come out to the queen rearing apiary, one thing we did was choke down the entrances, really choked them down. And only one mating nuke got robbed out. And we probably just didn't set it up correctly. But that's pretty good. For 19 and only one got robbed out, they're pretty close together. I mean, and that's going to happen if you're going to do very many mating nukes. And we had to feed all of them because you couldn't just say this one's weak and we'll feed this one. You know it's going to get robbed out. Come on, by the other ones. So it's interesting. So yeah, robbing screens, that's good defensive. Good defensive anyway.
Yep.
And I don't know of anything you can do unless something is a public nuisance.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have another volunteer for the ultimate queen test. Yeah, I knew Carol was going to be doing that. Okay, anybody else have a question that needs to go too? Because I know we talk on and on. Okay. Thanks everybody for coming and all those wonderful volunteers for the queen rearing workshop, because it's really, I think, something that clubs can do that's really team building and you meet people, and I think it's a good experience.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Okay. 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 Deep frames into the media box. Okay, Carol.
Did you understand what I wrote?
A hive of 2 mediums. You're going to end up with a mess, right? Because yeah, and if you want to move the frame with the just hatching eggs into the 2 mediums. I do the dangle method. You take out the 2 mediums.
Just dangle the deep frame between the 2 boxes.
Yeah, you have to take 2 mediums out, one at the top box, one at the bottom box, and you just drop that. Yeah, I think you're stuck. I don't see how. Unless somebody here can do a 3D logistics in your mind better. It is messy. Hey, but it'll give you a little drone comb. Trap some varroa.
But I'm also thinking this hive's gotten so small that I might be able to get all of it into a single medium. But I probably don't want to do that.
That won't really, if it's really small, would it fit into 5 deep frames? Do you have a 5 deep frame nuke left?
Uh-huh. I
Would-
do.
Well, but you still got the frames. Yeah, I think you're stuck with the dangle.
Okay.
I hate to have a lot of extra space though. It is hard for the bees to ventilate, set it up, patrol it, do guard duty. Yeah. There's a lot to be said for not having too much empty space. If you think you need to downsize, Carol's been struggling with these hives. See, 2 packages and a nuke, right? And one of the packages is fine and one isn't.
No, 2 nukes in a package. And it's
2 nukes in a package.
it's the package that's not fine.
Yeah, packages, I'm hit the point where I will not recommend packages anymore for beginners. I'm just going to say no, don't do it your first year. You don't have drawn comb, you don't have thermal stability. You don't get to see all the ages of the brood in front of you, so you have some idea what it is you're supposed to see later.
I agree with you.
I just think and the price difference is usually not that much. The profit margin is higher on packages. When you think about it, they're a lot easier to produce. You come back from the almond harvest or wherever, you shake a whole mess of bees from all the different hives together, and you just put them so many pounds in those little screen cheapy boxes that are not reusable anyway. And then you stick that Kona queen, or, because that is one of the problems. The genetics are not good. But the Kona queens may have come from queens that are northern climate queens. I just wouldn't bet on it. But they stick that queen in there and they're just all jumbled together, shook up on the truck, and they often do okay, with the exception that with packages, you have a higher chance of a supersedure. After all that shakeup, and the queen she can't go right into laying. They have to draw out comb for her if you are a beginner. So a package that could work for somebody who has drawn comb already, everything set up, experience, maybe some stores that are already, honey frames already. So they can put those in and give the hive thermal stability in our cold, wet springs. All those things come together to don't buy packages, please. I'm going to start begging. Walt was saying I'll do the bee dance at the fair, but I'll tell you, I'm not ready to start doing a routine where I just say, please don't do this to me. Don't buy packages. Don't space your brood nest 9 frames in a 10 frame box because somewhere on the internet it said that this was a great system, but you don't have drawn comb. It isn't even a possibility for you. You're just creating trouble. Burr comb like you wouldn't believe when you don't have your first drawn comb. It's really interesting, the things that people come up with. Throwing out their inner covers every winter, at the start of every winter. And then doing oxalic acid vaporization so that the vapor rises up into the moisture shim. It isn't stopped by an inner cover because the inner cover is not there. Drilling multiple holes up above the inner cover if they have one, or if they don't have one, even worse, and deciding that increasing the venting is a solution to every winterization problem. And they got so many holes up there. If I was a bee, I'd leave. Arctic winds rushing through the beehive.
All right, well, I'm going to dangle tomorrow. And, I'll let you know how it goes.
Package again. Never get talked into it.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, but think of all the experience you're getting, Carol.
Oh, yeah. Wonderful.
Right. It's like our lives. Yeah, right.
Carol, it actually is valuable to know how to do that, because there's going to be people that are going to want the advice from you on how you did it. So there are longer term benefits to this, and it's a bit of a struggle because I have deeps and mediums, and mine is going to be, you know, I'm waiting until next year to where I can basically remove the deeps and shift everything back to mediums, but knowing that it's just going to be a back and forth game. And, you know, at some point I may decide that deeps and mediums make a lot of sense because of the brood, you know, because I get more concentrated brood. So it's, you know, it's something you get to, you know, determine what works best for you and your apiary.
Okay, good pep talk.
All right, thank you.
We have to pep talk each other.
Yeah. Otherwise we just sell everything.
Okay, we're getting down to,
Yeah, I think it's time for me to wrap up too.
I think we get down to the more experienced people here.
Yeah, I've got the 4 a.m. tomorrow morning, so I
Okay.
gotta sign off. Thank you so much for your time, Eli, and I'll
Yeah,
touch base
thanks.
with you on the timing for the queens and
Yes,
stuff
yes,
this weekend.
yeah.
Okay.
And then I
All
don't know
right.
if I'm for round 2 or not, but that's pretty good round 1.
Yeah, it is a good round 1, and I would be willing to help with round 2. I may not have as much time just because I've got so much summer activity going on, and plus
Right.
the stack you see behind me, they need attention too. So yeah, so I'll take care of them too. All right, thank you, Eli.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay. Let's see, Patrick can talk about his swarms if he's not already putting his family to bed. Everybody's having a fun swarm season.
As a coordinator over here for honeybee swarms, I've been getting bumblebees. People still swear, no, they're honeybees. I said, send me pictures. No, those are bumblebees. And I just got a call late tonight. I asked the over in Poulsbo, and real nice gentleman, and he says, I'm not sure. They look like honeybees, and no, they were a type of yellow jacket going into a very small screen vent in below their house.
Yep.
And I sent pictures of a bumblebee, yellow jackets, and honeybees. So he said, thank you very much. Now we know what to do. So they're gonna.
You're a very nice person. Okay, Patrick is showing off again. He's got his camera on while he's out working the hives and listening to us, which I can't believe.
Oh man.
Oh, yeah. Multitasking. Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay, so you must be doing the oxalic acid treatments, huh?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm muted or not. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Yeah, you're fine. That's very good. Doing the proper respiratory instead of trying to do the smoker thing and run every time the wind changes.